if 2 people died as a result of a Ukrainian device, then they have to apologize for that and make it very clear that it's very, very regrettable. But ultimately, Russia is responsible. They were launching more, almost 100 attacks on Ukrainian civilians when this happened. There is something curious about this. I've no doubt that in essence, this is a SAM missile, because it certainly looks like a SAM missile. That is probably a Ukrainian surface-to-air missile. The engine section, the debris from the engine section, is spot on what an engine section from a SAM should be. And I think the forensics have probably established that. The curious thing I can't quite get reconciled in my head is the size of the crater, because modern SAM missiles only carry about a 25 kiloton warhead, which is very small. The older ones, which were not very accurate, carried 100 kiloton warheads. Those were big warheads, but these modern ones since 1990 carry pretty small warheads because they're so accurate, they don't need a big warhead. And the idea of a 25 kiloton warhead making a crater that big doesn't really square. I don't know, and I don't know any more than I have read, but I wouldn't be surprised if there is not 2 missiles wrapped up in that debris, both a Russian cruise missile, maybe a KH-101, and a SAM missile that collided with it.
I see.
But it would suit NATO not to say that there was any other debris wrapped up in it. And I'm guessing totally, I don't know. But I can't reconcile the size of the warhead with the size of the crater with the size of the warheads that SAM's missiles carry, unless there's some other reason why the crater is the size that it is. Maybe it happened to hit a depression in the ground or a big hole that was there in the first place. I don't know. However, I think NATO it's clear this is an accident. It is clear that this is not a deliberate attack or a provocation to Poland. And NATO is very grateful for that and very relieved about that. The Ukrainians were the first off the block to say it was obviously a Russian attack. And that was rather foolish of the Kyiv government to say that. They should have said what NATO said, which is just let's wait and see. All of the NATO spokespeople were very clear in the first few hours. They said, let us wait until we've found out. The media went berserk. My phone was pinging like crazy the other night, and I didn't respond to any of them because my whole reaction is within 24 hours, forensics will tell us quite a lot. And so in 24 hours, we'll know a great deal more. In 48 hours, we'll probably know the absolute truth by the end of today. So just wait. And it's a shame that Kyiv actually jumped the gun on it, really.
This event, someone trying to fire something to protect themselves, and then potentially that goes astray. How common is that? And are you surprised that it hasn't happened so far, if that is what's happened in this particular conflict?
Yeah, it doesn't happen that often, certainly not in countries as big as Ukraine. I mean, Ukraine is, apart from Russia itself, Ukraine is the biggest landmass in Europe. So you're talking about a very big country. But the Russians were attacking Ukraine with 90-odd missiles and drones right up to the border, west of Lviv. And they were, it was the Russians who are responsible for this. And if it is the case that in trying to defend themselves, the Ukrainians have the part of one of their missiles has actually come down in another country. That's just unfortunate. And I think, Kyiv has got to be very careful about this. I mean, we all support what Kyiv's doing. And of course, because they're in the middle of a war, they're ferocious, they're right on. Nothing that we do is enough. They're grateful for what we've done, but we need to do much, much more. That you expect them to say that because they're fighting for their life. But they've got to be careful that they don't alienate as it were, public opinion in the West. And I think they've got to be clear that this is a partnership. And if 2 people died as a result of a Ukrainian device, then they have to apologize for that and make it very clear that it's very, very regrettable. But ultimately, Russia is responsible. They were launching more, almost 100 attacks on Ukrainian civilians when this happened.